is maybe the 10th, 12th best point guard in the NBA, is averaging 20 points. Tiny Archibald, one of the 10 best ever, averaged 18. So it's like quarterbacks. Who isn't throwing for 4,000 yards now? Who's not throwing for 4,000 yards? Joe Montana never did. So, it's just like radio and television. There's things you can't say on radio and TV today that you could 25 years ago. The standards change. So James Harden last night, if I told you James Harden had 30 points, you'd be like, all right, let me see the numbers. He was really actually had a lot of freebie layups, couldn't hit shots. He was 2 for 13 on threes. James Harden did not have a great night. But in 2017, you could not have a great night and finish with 30. 30 years ago, you finished with 30 points. That was the lead story in the sports page. Harden with 30. Harden last night didn't play well. A lot of turnovers, 2 for 13 on threes, and ended with 30 points. So the world's changed. Just to show you a stat about triple doubles. In 1999, there were 18. In 2012, there were 18. Right now, we're at 102 with another 20 triple doubles to come. So it's the 4,000 yards barrier in football for quarterbacks. Joe Montana is the second best quarterback ever.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect partly sunny and drier weather out there through your afternoon. Not as warm, high 68 to 70. Tonight, fair, lows upper 40s. Could see a little late fog. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sunshine. Highs tomorrow into the lower 70s. A little warmer upper 70s on Sunday. Now at CC's, 3 new deep dish pizzas. New original deep dish, jalapeno cheddar, and garlic parmesan. All on the unlimited buffet for just $5 and change at your local CC's. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Wow! I feel good.
Welcome. Today's question: how would you like to have a micro business where you don't have to sell anything? We're going to talk about that today and give you some ideas on how you can put food on your family's table in rough times. I'm Sam Spade. You're listening to the Sam Spade Hour, and I'm here to help you get through the Second Great Depression. Now, if you think that that's hyperbole, if you think things are really going great in this country, or even if you think that they're maybe slowing up a little, but it's okay, the government's going to turn it around. If that's what you believe, if you were a Hillary supporter, then I don't think you want to listen to the rest of this show. Turn the station someplace else. But if you see clouds on the horizon, if you're worried about your future, if you're worried that your job is going to disappear, you're going to have trouble getting money to feed your family or pay your rent or even get through the near term, much less the far term of what's going on in our country, then you need to stay tuned because this is the show for you. We're here to get you through whatever comes. If you want to join into the discussion, please give us a phone call, 423-800-8949, or email me at noogaradio@gmail.com. Attention, Sam Spade. Okay, the subject today is a micro business that you can start and run on your own that doesn't require that you sell anything to anybody. You know, we've been talking about the advantage of micro businesses, how starting small businesses on the side in your spare time can really be helpful for stabilizing your income and helping you get through the crisis. And that's because if you're working for a big company right now, and you're worried about what's going on in the future, you have to recognize the fact that one of the first entities that start to suffer when the economy gets in trouble are big companies. The economic stress is just like big animals and small animals. You know, the dinosaurs died first before the little furry mammals did. And that's because stress has hit the big companies, which need more food to survive, than they do the small ones. And so when the economy starts to crater around here, you may well be, if you work for a big company, one of the first ones to be laid off. And so we talk about micro businesses, about starting small businesses that bring in, at best, less than $1,000 a month, and probably far less than that. We talk about starting them, getting them going, and through the use of a number of them, being able to put your time in and get food on your table. And if things go well and you continue to be unemployed, well, you just mothball them and they're there ready for you, ready to start producing. Now, today we're going to talk about a unique kind of micro business, one in which, as I say, you don't have to do any selling. And that is growing your own food. You know, if you have a large yard, if you have an empty space someplace in the sun that looks like it's a possibility for putting in a garden, today's guest is going to talk to you about how you should go about finding out how to do that. And I'd like to introduce now Katie Bishop. She is a master gardener here in Chattanooga. She's with the Master Gardeners of Hamilton County. That's mghc.org in case you want to look it up online. She is in charge of the Chattanooga area food bank gardening facility. There's actually a pretty large gardening facility in the back of that food bank, and she grows literally thousands of pounds a year worth of fresh produce and vegetables to help feed people who come to the food bank. So I'd like to talk today with her about what you might do to get a garden going in your own piece of property to start producing enough vegetables to feed your family in an emergency, and to be able to expand and grow it to be a major productive asset if you suddenly wind up with time because you're laid off. Katie, say hello to everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you here. It really is.
Thank you.
I was out looking at your facility here, I guess a month or two ago, and it's really quite impressive.
Thank you. We've got quite a few new things planted since you've been there, so we have our spring garden in.
All right. This is a good time, I guess, for changing over vegetables. I guess the last frost is officially April 1st? Is that right?
April 15th.
April 15th.
Yes.
All right.
But we've had very few frost anyway this winter.
Gotcha. So this is a good time to start planting vegetables that are, or soon will be a good time to start planting vegetables that are frost tender. Is that the idea?
Well, they can already be in by now. A lot of people will have their summer garden going by May 1st,
all right,
which you don't have to have it in that early. That's very early, because tomatoes you can still put in the end of June and have them go all the way through the end of summer.
Oh, great. Okay.
So now for the spring garden, it's more of your greens, your collards, kale, lettuce. You can plant potatoes now or sugar snap peas. Those kinds of things.
Okay. All right. Great.
Not sweet potatoes.
Not sweet potatoes. It's too cold still. Is that?
Yeah, sweet potatoes like it really, really hot. So they're a summer crop.
Okay. Great. Well, one of the things I want to talk about today, because it's coming up very timely for us, is the expo. I understand there is a spring expo that's put on by the Master Gardeners Association that would be a good place for people to start if they want to begin to learn how to put in a garden. Could you talk to us a little about that?
Yes, the name of the expo is Master Your Garden Expo, and it's Saturday, April 8th and Sunday, April 9th at Camp Jordan. That's in East Ridge, Tennessee. It's next to the Bass Pro Shop, very close to that exit there. And Saturday, it's 10 to 6, and Sunday, it's 10 to 5. And it's $5 to get in, and parking is free. Children under 12 are free. And they'll be starting Saturday at 11:30. There's 2 classrooms. And Sunday, there's also 2 classrooms. And any of the classroom programs, any of the lectures are free. So some of them are done by master gardeners, and some are featured speakers. It's just a wide variety. There'll be 17 different speakers and 60 different vendors. And your ticket is good for 2 days.
Okay.
And it's just $5.
Can you mention some of the specific topics that are going to be discussed?
Sure. In the garden variety, I'm going to be doing a vegetable gardening class at 12:30 on Saturday. And then again on Sunday, I'll have the same talk at 11 o'clock. But there'll also be a talk on a different way to prepare soil for gardening. That's called lasagna gardening. There's a talk on how to save your seeds and store them so you can if you like the crops you planted, you don't even have to buy your seeds. You can save your own seeds. So, and then there's one on straw bale gardening where you actually plant your vegetables in straw bales. And there's also talks on fertilizers and container gardening. And then there's a lot of other talks just on having to do with yard, things to do in the yards. Daylilies, bluebirds, crepe myrtle. There is one on bonsai, a type of bonsai. I'm sure I'm not saying this correctly.
Yeah, but that's probably not related to food, right?
No,
yeah,
it's
I'm
not.
really interested in talking about the sorts of things that somebody might begin to learn about.
So a majority of them there will.
Okay.
And the food bank does have a expo there, and we're one of the vendors. So the food bank will have a table set up there, and I'll be there to answer questions all weekend. But the Master Gardeners will also have a question and answer booth there. So that's there the whole time. So anybody with any type of question, the Agricultural Extension Office will have a booth there, and they can answer all kinds of gardening questions as well. And the agricultural guy that handles all the insects and related problems to plants, he will be there also.
Okay, that's great. Now let me be sure I understand. What are the dates of this again?
Saturday, April 8th from 10 to 6, and Sunday, April 9th from 11 to 5 at Camp Jordan.
Okay, so that's not this coming weekend. That's one weekend away.
A week away, not April Fools.
Right. And what time does it start?
10 o'clock.
So the gates open at 10. Very good. Very good. All right. Excellent. One of the things that and schedule wise, if they want to, I'm looking at a schedule with you here, but of course our listener can't see that. If they want to take a look at the actual schedule, can you give me where would they go online to look at that?
Go to Master Gardeners of Hamilton County, mghc.org, and that's our website. And in there's a section for Expo that you can click on, and it'll give you the setup for all the speakers and another section for all the vendors that will be there.
Okay, mghc.org. Very good, very good. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about micro businesses as it relates to this kind of business, which is growing your own food. One of the things that we talk about here in the show, one of the mantras that I constantly harp on is that if you're doing something like this, you should start small, you should start simple, you should really start cheap, and you should start now. What we're talking about, of course, for starting now is directly relevant because it is the season to begin to get going. It's the season to prepare the soil. And just as importantly, you've got expos like this around. So start now is very apropos. So let's start cheap. Let's talk a little bit about cost. How much, if I were to put in a learner garden, because that's really what you need right now. I'm not suggesting anybody go out and put in a couple of thousand square feet of a vegetable garden. I'm talking about something small. What would you think would be a good sized garden for a beginner who is just starting out?
Probably just a small enough area. If you have a small raised bed or thinking of doing a small section like that, just 4x8.
4x8. All
yes,
right.
You can really get quite a bit of produce out of that.
That's
I mean, you
good.
could probably put in, if you want to just do a summer, you can do 2 tomatoes and 2 peppers and then some green beans or sweet potatoes and the rest of it.
All right.
But even 1 tomato plant for a family, you get quite a few tomatoes off of it.
Well, I think this brings up an important point, and that is that the objective of micro businesses, as I describe, and that includes this one, is not to provide all your income. It's to provide a little bit of income on the theory that if you have a number of these, you could have lots of other sources of income. And when it comes to food, that means we're not interested, at least initially, in trying to grow enough food to feed your whole family. I'm more interested, and the reason you should consider it is growing enough food to supplement the nutritional requirements of your family. Because in an emergency, you're going to wind up getting whatever you can for food. And that may be a canned food from a food bank. That may be food which you have hopefully stored away for an emergency. We talk about this in other shows about food storage. But even then, it's dried peas, dried beans, dried whole grain rice, all of which are healthy enough in their own way. But nonetheless, they lack certain nutrients that you really need to get from fresh vegetables. So what we're talking about here is certainly at this stage is not to provide your family with a huge amount of food as much as it is to provide them with the supplements they need to keep their diet healthy. Is that something that you would agree to?
Yes, and I would recommend a variety. Try a variety of things. People often make the mistake in the summer saying, oh, I really love tomatoes, and they plant 8 different tomato plants. And then you have more tomatoes than you know what you're going to do with, and you don't do anything with them. If you're not going to freeze, make or can your tomatoes or
that's when you learn about canning real quick.
Yes, or make a lot of sauces and freeze those, then they're just stuck on the vine.
Sure, and they die, and you wasted your effort.
Who knows? The mockingbirds come and the squirrels come. So, start, again, what you said earlier, start small and start simple and see if you actually even like growing a garden.
Exactly.
Some people they get tired of it, they think it's real nice and start it, but there is a little work involved. You just can't ignore it.
No, that's one of the aspects of micro businesses that you need to be aware of, and it's true of any micro business, is it takes a lot of work to get started, and it takes work to keep it going. The idea that a micro business is somehow a cornucopia that just will start producing income without you having to do anything anymore on it. I don't know of anything anymore that is that way. And it used to be you could buy a bond and get something like that, but now the interest rates have gone to 0. So even buying a bond is pretty much pointless. If you want income from something, you have to put in effort.
Not unless you're lucky enough to win the lottery.
That's right. And so the argument here is, especially if you've got a job that is taking your time full time during the week and providing you with a steady source of income, is that you want to take some of the profits from that job, the income from that job, and instead of going out to dinner or partying on a regular basis, put it into these micro businesses. And gardening, growing your own food, I would argue, is certainly an excellent example for one of those micro businesses, especially because you don't have to sell.
If you don't like to do a lot of work with the garden, in the spring you could do potatoes because you'll probably get, maybe 8 potatoes out of one plant. So you could plant, even in a small area, do 4 or 5 plants, and then when you harvest those, they store very easily. So you really didn't have to do a lot of work with your potatoes to grow potatoes.
That's true.
But then you wouldn't have to buy potatoes for several months.
That's true.
The same thing with sweet potatoes. They grow around here very easily, and they store for 6-7 months once you dry them. So that's a very little amount of work for a big reward.
And a lot of these things are actually edible in ways you don't even think of. Now, I know potato greens are poisonous, but I understand.
Sweet potato greens are not.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Sweet potato greens are in fact quite edible. And if you're in a situation where you're trying to produce, they're also quite nutritious in terms of the nutrients that a living organism has. If you're trying to produce food for your family, being able to harvest both potato underground and the sweet potato greens above, I'm talking sweet potatoes here, is a big advantage.
Exactly.
So,
and actually carrot greens are edible, and many of your root vegetables, you can eat the greens as well as the roots, which a lot of people don't.
Turnips, obviously.
Beets and carrot greens.
Well, let me address another subject now,
sure.
which ties in with the theme that I just gave about small, simple, cheap, and now, and in particular, the word cheap is a relevant concern to me, because one of the things that our listeners probably looking at is the fact that he probably doesn't have much money. Now, we talked raised beds, which means he's going to have to buy wood in order to raise the bed. Does he have to have a raised bed, or can he just do this as a flat bed?
And you can do it flat in the ground, and I have done this at my house too. And I have the typical Chattanooga soil of chert with a lot of rock in it. And I picked out an area and took all the rock and put it on the sides, and then just amended that area. I had an area probably 3 by 8 feet.
Right. Good reason to start small.
Start small, because it was a lot of work just to get all the rocks and soil out there. And I just put in leaves from my yard and, amended it some with a bag of compost that I bought, sprinkled it through there. But after a couple of years, that soil was very, very nice.
Okay. Now, what about the things that I need to have if I'm looking for a spot to be suitable for growing on? What are sorts of things that I really need to think of for whether this is a suitable area for growth?
Well, the first on the list is plenty of sun.
Ah, great. How much is plenty?
So for cool weather crops, spring and fall, you would need at least 6 hours of sun. And the summer, the more the better. Minimum, I would say 6 or 7. But your garden should be in the sunniest spot available.
Ideally facing south.
Yes. And if it's too far away from a water source, you probably won't water, because nobody wants to carry jugs of water there. So the availability of water and the amount of sun are probably most important.
Okay. What about the quality of the soil?
That is the advantage in this area of doing some sort of raised bed. Right. And when you're talking raised bed, you really only need a soil depth of, I'd say 8-10.
Okay, I'm thinking of amendments
inches.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, because
can I get amendments free someplace?
You can get mulch from the city, and you can get leaf litter from the city.
Good.
That's that area behind on Amnicola, behind the police station there. That's where the city comes and grinds up everything.
Right.
So, and that you will have to have your own vehicle. They're not going to deliver it to your house. Sure.
So let me ask again about cost and get back to the bottom line here.
But you could easily amend your soil with the leaf compost, the leaf litter that the city uses.
Okay. And what am I going to need a tiller, or can I just use a shovel to turn it?
I just use the shovel in mine. If you have a small area, you certainly don't need a tiller.
Good. So
a little hard work with your hands, and
so we're talking what, basically just hand tools. It sounds exactly like that's really all I need, and just mark off an area that's in the sun, reasonably level. I assume it has to be somewhat level. And get the shovel and go to work. Yes,
get out all the sand. I mean, the grass and the weeds and most of the big rocks.
Okay. Well, that's great. All right. So let me ask one more time, since we're getting close to the end, for you to talk one more time about this expo, because I think this is a great way for people to begin to get their feet in the water if they're not sure how.
All right. The Master Gardener Association is connected under the UT Extension, and that office is on Bonnie Oaks off of, it is off Bonnie Oaks, right near where you get the auto tags. And that's where the Extension office is. And all of these programs are available to anybody in the public. And you can probably find all the information on the expo at the Master Gardener website. That's mghc.org. And there'll be 60 different vendors there, many of them pertaining to gardening. There'll be a question and answer booth. I will be there to answer any gardening questions. And that website also gives a list of all the classroom instruction.
Okay, now you also mentioned something about
there is a kids area there too. So kids under 12 are free, and there will be a kids area that they can do their own kids activity.
Oh, great.
So if you have small children, go ahead and bring them.
Great. Okay, what about extension service? You mentioned them earlier to me a little bit. Is that something else that a person looking into this might have as a resource?
Yes, the agricultural extension agent, we have Tom Stebbins, but they also at the extension, they offer healthy food choices. They do canning, cooking instructions. There's a wide variety of food resource management there. FNAP and SNAP, if anybody's familiar with those terms. And then Tom handles a lot of the gardening questions. But we have a hotline there on Monday and Wednesday mornings.
Okay, that's really, really good. Thank you very much. Now, I'm talking today with Katie Bishop. She's in charge of growing all the food for the Chattanooga food bank, area food bank, and does literally thousands of pounds a year worth of food. And she's talking with us today about using your garden as a micro business.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds.
Thank you.
We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class, top-notch service and treatment. Because at Alliance Physical Therapy of Chattanooga, we don't just treat the symptoms in your body. Whether you're suffering from stiffness, muscle spasms, back pain, chronic headaches every day, stress of life demanding more and more of you, Alliance Physical Therapy takes a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and soul. Alliance Physical Therapy with a location near you and 9 others in the Chattanooga area. If you don't have a doctor or if your physician's plan for chronic pain is not working, Alliance Physical Therapy will help. Visit Alliance Physical Therapy on the web at nopainpt.com. That's nopainpt.com. Alliance Physical Therapy.
Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson, featuring our NASCAR Natty Light for only $2.25 all day during the Sprint Cup race. That's right, all day during the race. Enjoy a cool, crisp, refreshing brew. Natty Light, just $2.25. Also choose from a wide variety of other beverages on tap or in the bottle. Amigos, between Hobby Lobby and Staples in Hickson. Amigos Mexican Restaurant, a real homemade taste of Mexico. And Natty Light for only $2.25 during the Sprint Cup race. A festive atmosphere, great service and prices, a fantastic taste. Always fresh, never frozen. Stay cool, quench your thirst at happy hour, 9 to 3 today and every day, featuring huge drink specials at Amigos. Take the table next to mine. We'll enjoy the Sprint Cup race on huge flat screen TVs with friends and family. See you here at the Cantina, Amigos.
Is your career taking you where you want to go? If not, talk to Covenant Group Insurance, especially if you like helping people. Call and learn how you can work for yourself, but not by yourself. Intense but free training, plus a fantastic lead program, plus office support equals your success, your prosperity. Gross at least $75,000 your first year selling insurance. Call Steve or Jada for a confidential interview. That's 855-8484. Maybe the most important call you'll make all year.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. A Cleveland family made a grisly discovery when the family dog brought a skull into their garage. The police were called and a sweep was made and skeletal remains were found. It's been sent off to the Bradley County Medical Examiner's Office for identification. No ID was found on scene. The feds have arrested a man who they say is a gang ringleader, Bobby Ray Johnson, who's been arrested after they say he started a fight between 2 gangs that led to massive amounts of bloodshed. A gang expert testifying in court say that the fight began at Terry's between 2 sects of the same gang, and the feud ended when Bobby Ray Johnson was arrested. State senators have approved the HERO Act, which would allow the payment of $250,000 to the family members of emergency workers who die in the line of duty. Sean Hale, who was wanted in Cleveland in connection with a body that was found in a clearing in Polk County, has now been found and arrested in Fort Payne, Alabama, found walking on the side of I-59 with his brother, Brian. Police say a stolen vehicle that was used in the commission of the murder was found burned in a remote part of Fort Payne, Alabama. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooga Radio News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect partly sunny and drier weather out there through your afternoon. Not as warm, high 68 to 70. Tonight, fair, lows upper 40s. Could see a little late fog. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sunshine. Highs tomorrow into the lower 70s. A little warmer upper 70s on Sunday. Now at CC's, 3 new deep dish pizzas. New original deep dish, jalapeno cheddar, and garlic parmesan, all on the unlimited buffet for just $5 and change at your local CC's. And I'm Snorsheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Sam Spade. You're listening to the Sam Spade Hour. Last half hour, we had a specialist on growing your own food, talking about how you can feed your family if you think of it as a micro business. Now, in this half hour, we're going to talk about another kind of micro business that you can use to get you through the crisis that we think is coming. I'm Sam Spade. And right now, we're here to help you get through the second Great Depression. If you think the things are going well in this country, if you think we're at worst experiencing a minor downturn, you think the powers that be will turn it around, lift us back up, and everything will go great in the very near future, then you probably need to go to another station, because I don't think we have anything here that you'd be interested in. But if you see storm clouds on the horizon, if you feel that the economy is just now starting a downturn that's going to get worse and worse and worse, if you don't think Trump is going to turn things around, and you don't think that the alternatives offered by Hillary supporters are any better, if you think we're in for hard times, this is the radio station to listen to. Listen to it now. We're going to tell you how to prepare for those hard times. Later on, when they hit, we're going to tell you how to get through them. If you want to join in the discussion, the phone number here is 423-800-8949, or you can email me at noogaradio@gmail.com. Attention, Sam Spade. This hour, we're talking about what I call mothballable micro businesses. The idea is that if you're working for a large company, doing some sort of continuous, repetitive-ish kind of work, like filling out form number 2790, and you've been doing it for several years and you're really, really good at it, you maybe need to worry about what happens if you get laid off. Because if this kind of economic downturn reaps through the system and knocks down businesses everywhere, it's going to knock down the big, stodgy companies first. And you're going to wind up out of work with skills that may not be very employable anyplace else at a time when everybody else with those same skills is out on the street looking too. The solution that we want to talk to you about today is micro businesses. And specifically, I'm talking about micro businesses that are mothballable. The idea is that you spend a lot of time and a little bit of money up front figuring out how to do something that will produce income for you. And by income, I'm not talking about feeding you and your family. I'm not talking about living in a high lifestyle or taking a vacation. I'm talking about less than $1,000 a month, maybe a whole lot less than $1,000 a month. The idea is that if you have several of these going, you can wind up making ends meet and getting through the crisis. That's the hope. Now, the problem with micro businesses are that they always take effort. They always take work. There is no such thing as passive income in a micro business. In fact, there may not be anything related to passive income anymore. It may be a mirage. If you think of it, it used to be that bonds represented a form of passive income. You could buy it and clip the coupons. That day is gone. In fact, the day for passive income in general is gone. specifically for the reasons that governments are printing money so fast that interest rates have dropped through the floor. And as a result, any potential passive income is competing with bonds, and people put their money in it. So you need to look at a micro business as a way to convert your time into money. And that means when you don't have a lot of time, as you don't right now, if you're working for a company 40 plus hours a week, you want to be able to put this thing on the shelf once you've developed it, once you've got it going, once you understand how to do it. You want to mothball it. You want to put it on the shelf and let it sit and wait. The idea then is that if suddenly you're in trouble and you've got 5 or 8 or 10 of these sitting on the shelf, situations in which you've bought the equipment, you know how to start the business, you know who your customers are. All it takes to get this thing producing money and food for your family is some of your time. And guess what? When you're laid off, that's what you have a lot of. So this is kind of an insurance policy. That's what we're talking about. Last time we talked about it in gardening. That was what we said. Grow your own food. You don't have to sell it to anybody. It's a great micro business. Today, we're going to talk about another one. And we're going to talk in a broader sense about how you find these micro businesses. Because it's not really very obvious when you sit down and you think about it, what you might do. In fact, one of the problems is that most of us automatically tend to think of things that are too big, that are too large, that are way beyond the term micro. And then we sit down and do a plan about, well, how am I going to do that? And suddenly you find out, well, if I want to start a laundromat, I have to buy, a dozen machines, and I got to buy some dryers, and then you start adding up money and how much it costs us to leave the building. And, you're way, way out of the ballpark about anything in which the term micro might apply. So the important point when we talk micro businesses is a mantra that I say all the time. I'm going to say it again. You're going to get tired of hearing me say it if you listen to this radio, but I want to stress it. It's start small, start simple, start cheap, and start now. You're not trying to build yourself a 7-Eleven. You're not trying to build yourself a little quick stop grocery store. You're trying to build something that's a whole lot smaller. And let me give you an example right now. I'll give you first the example of how I met somebody and as a result of meeting him, realized that there is a potential micro business in this. And then I will give you the example of that micro business, and you'll see how it meets that mantra. I was out walking the dog up on Signal Mountain, Rainbow Lake. It's a great place to walk, by the way, if everybody's never been there. And as I turned the corner on this trail, some guy walks out of the woods with something in his hand. It looked kind of like maybe a lopsided tennis ball, except that it looked like it was made out of kind of translucent wax. It had maybe a little bit of a greenish color, and it really didn't have much of a shape, except it seemed rather solid. And he was very interested in it. He was looking at it. And so I said, what are you doing? What's that? And he said, oh, this is and he gave me a Latin name. And I said, what? And he says, well, it's a particular kind of mushroom. I said, well, why are you picking mushrooms? He says, oh, I eat them. I cut them up, I fry them. They're great. And he began to talk about all the advantages of mushrooms. And there are quite a few. If you want to go online, you can look up and find out that there are people, as he was one, who are so crazy about mushrooms that they're willing to walk through woods for hours trying to find mushrooms. He said he was out there actually looking for morels. I'm not sure exactly what a morel is, but that's what he was looking for. And he found this one instead. And he said it was just a great little personal find that he appreciated. So we talked some more, and he said, well, often when he doesn't have mushroom season or when he has other things to do, he goes ahead and he grows mushrooms at home. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? How do you do that? He said the specific example of what he does is he goes and he buys a bale of hay, bales of hay or $2, $3, $4, something like that. He chops the hay up. I didn't ask him how, I probably should have, but he chops the hay up. He throws it in a big pot of water and brings it to a boil to sterilize it. And then he takes it out, lets it drain, and makes layers inside a garbage bag. He'll layer some of this damp, and of course it's dried. It's still a little warm, but it's dried, damp hay, chopped hay. And he'll layer it with spores that he buys on the internet for mushrooms. And he'll do this layer of hay, mushroom spores, hay, spores. And eventually, when he's got it done, he'll close up the bag and just stick it in a closet. All it has to be is warm, or at least not cold, not freezing, but room temperature. And over a period of 2 weeks, the underground systems that are the fungus form. Now, that's not the mushrooms. That's just the supporting structure. After 2 weeks, he goes in, he punches holes in this thing, sticks the bag back in the closet for another 2 weeks, comes back, opens it up, and he's got 5 pounds of mushrooms. He says that's typically what he harvests out of a garbage bag. So he takes 5 pounds, he eats it, he enjoys it, comes back 2 weeks later, there's 2 pounds. He's typically, it goes down by half every time. He harvests that and it's good. He comes back 2 weeks, there's 1 pound. He finishes with that, and then he throws the rest of the stuff out in his vegetable garden because it makes real good compost by then. Now, if you think what he's growing, he's not growing these little button mushrooms that you buy at the store. Or he's not even growing things like portobellos. He's growing a large number of exotic mushrooms. He gets to pick what they are because he goes on the internet and he picks the particular kind of spores that he wants to buy. So it occurs to me, thinking about this and talking to the guy, my gosh, if this guy thinks they're so great that he's willing to traipse through the jungle up there and hack his way through all day long trying to find these mushrooms, there are people that have got to be willing to pay for this stuff. So there comes the micro business. Let's talk about this as a possible business. Who would be interested in buying mushrooms? Not just the button kind now. I'm talking about the real specialty, exotic, gourmet mushrooms. And the key word is probably gourmet that should tip you off. You're going to have restaurants that are specialty restaurants. The Whole Foods is one, of course, and there's others in town that would be interested in selling fresh specialty mushrooms. Of course, the better restaurants in town, if you go to them and say, listen, I've got these mushrooms, I can supply them to you on a regular basis. Would you be interested in buying them? And give them some mushrooms and let them start to take advantage of it and try it and see what their guests say. You will pretty soon begin to develop a clientele that'll start to buy these mushrooms. Now, once you've done that, you have a micro business. Now, unfortunately, it's probably not completely mothballable because you have to recognize that these people that you've got who were interested in the mushrooms probably need to be continuously supplied or they'll lose interest. But nonetheless, even if you stop supplying them, you now know that if the economy turns down, you know how to grow the mushrooms, you know how to go to them, you know who to go to, you know which ones are interested in buying it, and you know roughly how much they are willing to spend and have spent in the past. Now, the problem is, of course, 1 sack of mushroom compost is not going to do you very good. So you're going to have to actually tool this up if you really want to begin to produce. But you can imagine you can go out and buy totes. You can take a spare room, put in a little framework, put a dozen totes with chopped up hay in it, and you can figure out how to get yourself a big drum that you sit someplace with a propane burner that you use to actually boil the hay, and a drain, make a drain thing sitting in the bathtub that sits there and drains it. You understand what I'm saying? With relatively small amounts of money, you can put together jigs and systems that will enable you to get a continuous production flow of specialty mushrooms going that you can now turn around and start to sell locally. That's an example of a mothballable micro business. Now, let me talk a little about some of the characteristics that we just talked about in the first part, which is how I found somebody and how I thought about this business and went through the process of getting it done. Because the important point I want to stress to you today is not the idea that you need to go into the mushroom business. You may or may not be able to go into the mushroom business. Maybe you live in an apartment where you don't have a spare room, or they would get real angry at you in your apartment if you ran a business out of it, or half a dozen other reasons. I don't know. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that to find these ideas and to get them developed, you have to follow certain rules. And this is an example of the kind of rules and mindset that would help you make that path. Again, the important point is you're looking for businesses that you can start small. It was a small business, right? You're starting it with nothing more than a garbage bag full of grass. Start simple. Well, you can't get a whole lot simpler than a garbage bag full of grass. Ditto with cheap. I mean, you're going to have to buy some of those spores, but that's about all. The important point is you also need to start it now. Having an idea doesn't get you anywhere. You actually have to start working on it. Okay, so how did I develop this idea, and how did I find out about it? Well, think about the example that I gave you. I started out by meeting strangers who do different things in odd places and odd ways. I go to them and I say, oh, look, this is a guy walking out of the woods with something funny in his hand. Let me talk to the guy and find out what and how and why. You have to ask yourself, what does this person want? What is driving him? What is making him interested in what he's doing? And once you get that sort of information, then you kind of have to turn the question around and ask, what does he have that he could give me? I don't mean physically. I didn't ask this man for his little funny, lumpy, pale mushroom, but intellectually. What does he represent as a group? What can he supply me with ideas? Where can I take the opportunity that has come here with this individual? And what can I turn around and offer other people based on what he has given me? And that's the thought process that went into thinking about and eventually developing the idea of this mushroom business. Now, there are people in this station who are Christians who will tell you that this is nothing but Christianity in action. That your purpose on earth, if you are a good Christian, one of the main purposes on earth is to help other people. And I'm not particularly pushing it as a Christian virtue, but I think if you look at any of the major religions, you'll find embedded there in their religion is the same concept, which is what we roughly call the golden rule. And the key to understanding how to start micro businesses, the key to figuring out how to get these things moving and offline and just developing them in your mind first, because that's the first place they have to be. The key is to think about the golden rule. What can you do to help your fellow man? What kind of problems does he have? What kind of issues would he like help getting solved? How could you go about solving those problems and do so in an inexpensive and economical fashion? And only after you have gone through those and actually done it, actually started to produce something of value, to go out to the field, have to customer bases and get money coming back in, only then can you begin to say, well, okay, I'm going to do more than just make a little money to cover my costs. I'm going to start to ask for money up front to make a business that actually produces me income. When you walk into a restaurant with a little container of mushrooms, you had to buy that container someplace, that not the mushrooms, but the little container that it holds, and it needs to look relatively professional. So it's going to take a little money. I think they're usually pressed cardboard or something like that. But you have to buy a small stack of these. It costs a little money. You got gas. You got to drive around. You got to call people. You got to knock on doors and walk in with this little handful of mushrooms and say, here, I want you to try that. The chances are he's not going to pay anything for that. And get him to try it for free. Well, that's the whole point. If you think about a drug dealer, what is the first thing he does? He doesn't walk up to you and say, hey, man, you want to become a heroin addict? No, he walks up and says, hey, guy, would you like to try one of these pills that's really going to make you feel good? I'll give it to you for free. And only after he gets the customer used to the service does he begin to charge for the service. That's what you have to do as part of this small business function. You have to recognize that initially you don't know a whole lot. He doesn't know a whole lot. Everybody's operating from ignorance, and you're not going to get any money because of that. One of the other mantras that we say often in this show, very applicable, is you have to learn before you can earn. And learn is not just book learning. Learning is experience. Learning is learning about other people who are your potential customers, learning what they want, how they want it, how you can deliver it to them. So I recommend, therefore, that you keep in mind two general concepts in terms of finding ideas for small businesses, for micro businesses, and that you start to try and live these concepts. And the first is you have to go out and meet other people. You have to find strangers who are doing things differently from what you normally encounter. Now, if you live in a big company, if you work every day in cubicle 3 over, 2 down, you sit every day long on your computer filling out form 2790, you go to lunch all the time with the same guys that you work with, you go home at night and you watch TV with your wife, you're never going to meet these people. All right. You're going to have to start by getting out of the rut that you're in, out of the life that you're in, take the trouble to move into new kinds of environments. That's the first requirement. The second requirement is that you're going to have to start actively practicing the golden rule. When you meet these people, one of the first things you're going to have to say to yourself is, how can I help this guy? What does this guy need? What is not going right in his or her? And I don't mean, I've said guy, but I don't mean that it's necessarily a man you're talking to. How does this person need to get through life? What does he or she need that would make his or her life better? And the second question is, how can I think of a way to maybe supply this? Now, in the case of the mushroom man, I asked for his card. I mean, I wasn't shy about it. I said, listen, it sounds like you get some really good ideas with mushrooms. And, if I think of a way to maybe start to make some money, if you'd like to get involved with me on it.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
And he gave that to me.
News Talk.
So, anyway, those are my ideas. This is Sam Spade.
AM 1240,
I
Nooga
really
Radio
appreciate
News.
you
Russell
listening.
Stroud reporting. A Cleveland family made a grisly discovery when the family dog brought a skull into their garage. The police were called and a sweep was made and skeletal remains were found. It's been sent off to the Bradley County Medical Examiner's Office for identification. No ID was found on scene. The feds have arrested a man who they say is a gang ringleader, Bobby Ray Johnson, who's been arrested after they say he started a fight between two gangs that led to massive amounts of bloodshed. A gang expert testifying in court say that the fight began at Terry's between two sects of the same gang, and the feud ended when Bobby Ray Johnson was arrested. State senators have approved the HERO Act, which would allow the payment of $250,000 to the family members of emergency workers who die in the line of duty. Sean Hill, who was wanted in Cleveland in connection with a body that was found in a clearing in Polk County, has now been found and arrested in Fort Payne, Alabama, found walking on the side of I-59 with his brother, Brian. Police say a stolen vehicle that was used in the commission of the murder was found burned in a remote part of Fort Payne, Alabama. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooga Radio News.
Expect partly sunny and drier weather out there through your afternoon. Not as warm, high 68 to 70. Tonight, fair, lows upper 40s. Could see a little late fog. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sunshine. Highs tomorrow into the lower 70s. A little warmer upper 70s on Sunday. Now at CC's, 3 new deep dish pizzas. New original deep dish, jalapeno cheddar, and garlic parmesan. All on the unlimited buffet for just $5 and change at your local CC's. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson, Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929. There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class